I died on my wedding day. Not from a bullet or a crash, but from the slow, venomous unraveling of my soul right there in front of 500 wide-eyed strangers, my heart shattering like cheap crystal under the weight of my father's words. Addison's always been the family disappointment. He boomed into the microphone, his voice dripping with that fake paternal chuckle, as if he were sharing a harmless anecdote instead of eviscerating me on the grand ballroom stage of the Waldorf Astoria. And in that instant, as the laughter rippled through the crowd, polite at first, then cruel, I felt the blackness creep in, my vision tunneling to the glittering chandeliers above, knowing with bone-deep certainty that this was his final betrayal, the one that would end me. But death isn't the end. Not when you've been handed a second chance. A glitch in the universe's cruel code that spits you back into your own skin. 24 hours before the noose tightens. I woke up gasping in my bridal suite at the Plaza Hotel, the silk sheets tangled around me like restraints from a nightmare I couldn't shake. My hands, my same manicured hands, nails painted a defiant crimson, clutched at my chest, feeling the frantic thud of a heart that shouldn't be beating anymore. The clock on the nightstand glowed 7:14 a.m., the morning of the rehearsal dinner, not the wedding itself. June 15th. One day earlier. The calendar app on my phone confirmed it, mocking me with its banal normalcy. Rehearsal tonight. Don't forget Dad's toast. Holy shit. I'd done it. Reborn.
重生
As my Vietnamese grandmother used to whisper in those old folktales she'd tell me as a kid in our cramped Queens apartment, back when life was just immigrant grit and dreams of making it big. But this wasn't some fairy tale. This was Manhattan's underbelly, where family empires were built on lies and buried bodies, figurative ones. Mostly, but in my case, maybe not. I bolted upright, ignoring the pounding in my skull, and grabbed my laptop from the vanity. My fingers flew across the keys, pulling up the encrypted drive I'd hidden years ago, the one with the digital ghosts of my first life. Bank records, emails, that damning audio file. It was all still there, untouched, because in this timeline, I hadn't died yet. I hadn't confronted him. But God. The memories flooded back like bile, the way he'd smiled as the paramedics wheeled me out on a stretcher, chalking it up to stress-induced collapse, while the tabloids feasted on heiress Addison's wedding meltdown. I wasn't an heiress by blood. Not really. My father, William Harrington, real estate mogul, philanthropist poster boy, the man who'd clawed his way from a Jersey trailer park to penthouses overlooking Central Park, had adopted me at 5. After my mom overdosed in a haze of pills and bad decisions. Vietnamese refugee turned cocktail waitress. She'd hooked up with some nameless suit at a Wall Street bar. And 9 months later, there I was, Addison Gwynn Harrington, the exotic trophy kid to polish his image. He paraded me through prep schools, Ivy League summers, and now this, a merger disguised as a marriage to Ethan Caldwell, heir to a Texas oil fortune. Our wedding wasn't love, it was leverage. 500 guests from Forbes lists and society pages, all there to witness the Harrington-Caldwell alliance seal a billion-dollar deal in luxury condos from Houston to Harlem. But William? He'd always seen me as the weak link. The girl who asked too many questions. Who majored in journalism instead of finance. Who dared to dig into the family business when discrepancies popped up in the ledgers during my internship at Harrington Properties. I'd found them accidentally, shell companies siphoning funds into offshore accounts, bribes to city officials for zoning approvals, even a whisper of ties to the mobbed-up unions in Brooklyn. I'd confronted him once, tearfully, in his corner office with the Hudson River view. Dad, This could ruin us. We have to come clean. His laugh had been ice. Us? Sweetheart, you're in over your head. Stick to planning your little blog posts about ethical real estate. That was the first crack. Then came the sabotage. Leaked stories painting me as unstable. Anonymous tips to Ethan's family about my temper. And finally, the wedding toast that broke me. In my first life, I'd swallowed it all. Too loyal. Too desperate for his approval. Collapsed right there on stage from a panic attack, so severe it triggered cardiac arrest. Irony of ironies. The stress he inflicted killing me at 28.
But now?
Now I was back, and the fury burned hotter than any grief. I wouldn't just survive this wedding. I'd dismantle him, brick by hypocritical brick. Starting tonight at the rehearsal. The day blurred into a frenzy of preparations, but I moved through it like a ghost in my own skin, nodding at the florist, approving the string quartet's playlist, all while plotting in the margins of my mind. Ethan arrived mid-morning, all golden boy charm in his pressed chinos, pulling me into a hug that smelled of sandalwood cologne and entitlement. You okay? Addie, you look intense. I forced a smile, tracing the line of his jaw, the same jaw that would grind in frustration later when the deal soured. Just nerves.
Babe.
Big day tomorrow. He bought it. As always, Ethan was sweet, but shallow. A man who loved the idea of me more than the mess beneath. By evening, the private dining room at Le Bernardin hummed with pre-wedding pomp, crystal flutes bubbling with Veuve Clicquot, waiters in crisp whites gliding like shadows. 50 intimate guests, family, close friends, the power players who'd fly in tomorrow for the main event. William held court at the head of the table, his salt and pepper hair impeccable, laughing that booming laugh as he regaled Aunt Lydia with tales of his latest Tribeca acquisition. I watched him from across the room, sipping my gin and tonic, the ice clinking like tiny accusations. He caught my eye and waved me over, paternal warmth on full blast. There's my girl. Come sit. Tell everyone about that internship you crushed last summer. The table leaned in, expectant. In my old life, I blushed and babbled about market analyses, playing the good daughter. Tonight, I slid into the seat beside him, my voice steady as steel. Actually,
Dad.
I'd rather talk about the internship's real highlight, discovering those offshore accounts in the Caymans. You know, the ones funneled from the Hudson Yards project. Silence crashed down like a guillotine. Forks hovered midair. Ethan's brow furrowed. William's smile froze. Then cracked. Addison. Darling. That's not.
Oh.
But it is. I cut in, pulling out my phone and cueing the audio file I'd emailed myself that morning, a grainy recording from my hidden phone mic during that office confrontation years ago. His voice crackled through the speaker. If you breathe a word, I'll bury you deeper than your mother's debts. Gasps rippled. Aunt Lydia's hand flew to her pearls. William's face mottled red. This is a joke, right? Family matter. Family? I echoed, my laugh sharp as shattered glass. You mean the family you built on lies? Mom didn't OD by accident. Did she? You pushed her out when she got too close to your side hustles, paid off the coroner to call it suicide. And me? You adopted me to launder your image, then framed me for the leaks when I wouldn't play along. That disappointment speech tomorrow? It's your exit strategy. Tank my credibility so no one questions why the accounts are bleeding dry. The room erupted. Ethan stood, chair scraping. Addie, what the hell? William lunged for my phone, but I yanked it back. standing tall. Check your email.
Dad.
I just forwarded everything to the board,
The assistant.
and that reporter from the Times who's been sniffing around. Your empire's crumbling as we speak. He staggered, clutching the tablecloth, eyes bulging with the first real fear I'd ever seen in them. Security, his own men, hovered uncertainly as whispers turned to shouts. I walked out into the humid Manhattan night, the city lights blurring through hot tears, not of pain, but triumph. This was just the opening salvo. Tomorrow's wedding? It would be his funeral pyre. The fallout from the rehearsal hit like a nor'easter, whipping through the Harrington inner circle by dawn. My phone buzzed nonstop in the bridal suite. Texts from Ethan's mom. Is this true? We're postponing. Panicked voicemails from William's lawyers. Miss Harrington, we need to discuss damage control. Even a curt call from my half-brother Marcus, who I'd always suspected was Daddy's favorite. You crazy bitch. You just nuked everything. Dad's having a stroke, metaphorically. I let them pile up, unanswered, while I paced the Persian rug in my robe, mapping the next moves on a legal pad, like some deranged general. Revenge isn't clean, it's a mudslide, pulling everyone under. In my first life, I'd idolized Marcus. 10 years my senior, the golden child who'd taken over Harrington Properties day-to-day while I played debutante. But he'd been in on it from the jump, falsifying docs, schmoozing the crooked councilman, even the one who'd greenlit that toxic waste dump disguised as a green development in the Bronx. I'd uncovered his emails, too. Buried in the drive. Handle the girl if she gets nosy. Dad's orders. Nosy. That's what they called a daughter sniffing out felony fraud. By 10 a.m., the wedding coordinator, bless her frantic soul, burst in with a tablet full of cancellations, half the vendors bailing, guests demanding refunds, the string quartet union threatening a walkout over ethical concerns. MS. Addison. The whole thing's imploding. Mr. Harrington says to proceed or else. I cut her off with a raised hand. Proceed. Double the security. And comp everyone champagne. It'll loosen tongues. She blinked, nodding like I'd just handed her the keys to the kingdom.
See?
That's the controversial bit. I wasn't calling it off. No. I'd weaponize the spectacle. Let the 500 witnesses see William Harrington's mask shatter in real time. Let the headline scream it from Times Square to TikTok. Ethan cornered me in the lobby at noon, his face a storm cloud under that perfect pompadour. We were supposed to do photos in Bryant Park, but now it felt like a hostage negotiation. Addie.
Talk to me.
Those accusations, if even half are true, this alliance is dead. My family's pulling funding. I studied him. This man I'd almost convinced myself to love, the lazy grins over Sunday brunches at Sarah Beth's, the way he'd hum along to Springsteen in his Tesla. But love, it was a luxury I couldn't afford anymore. Ethan, you knew. Or suspected. The Caldwells have their own skeletons. Those EPA fines you buried last year? I have copies. His jaw slackened. That's blackmail. Call it leverage. I shot back, my voice low, laced with that queen's edge I usually sanded down for these blue bloods. Marry me anyway, and we expose them together. Walk. And I leak it all, your daddy's drilling rights in protected wetlands. It was a bluff. Mostly, I hadn't dug that deep yet. But his eyes darted, calculating, and I saw the fracture, ambition winning over affection. You're not the girl I thought, he muttered. But he didn't leave. Progress. The afternoon crawled by in fittings and false smiles. My gown, a Vera Wang sheath in ivory silk, nipped at the waist like a second skin, felt less like armor and more like a shroud now. But as I stared at my reflection, the woman gazing back had fire in her eyes. Not fear. This body, this life, it was mine to reclaim. I'd spent my first 28 years chasing William's shadow, apologizing for my sharp tongue, dimming my light to fit his narrative. No more.
Tonight.
At the altar, I'd burn it all down. William cornered me in the green room pre-ceremony, the air thick with tuberose from the bouquets. He looked haggard, ties loosened, eyes bloodshot from whatever scotch he'd drowned in. Addison.
Please.
Whatever grudge you have. Grudge. I whirled on him, the veil whispering like a conspirator. You killed her. Dad.
Mom.
I found the bank transfers. Hush money to her dealer. Forged notes, making it look like she chose the pills. And when I started asking questions as a teen, you dosed my drinks at family dinners. Remember those migraines that kept me foggy? Benzodiazepines. Slipped in by your loyal staff. You groomed me to be silent, then broke me when I wouldn't. He recoiled. But there was no denial. Just a slick pivot. I did it for us. The business, it's our legacy. Yours too. If you just... Legacy. I spat the word like venom. You mean the one built on evicted families from Bed-Stuy row houses? The kickbacks from slumlords in Harlem? I have witnesses lined up tomorrow. Former tenants. The whistleblower from accounting. And Marcus? He's next. Those Cayman wires lead straight to his signature. His hand shot out, grabbing my wrist hard enough to bruise. You ungrateful little. But the door swung open, the officiant, a bland Episcopalian priest with a clipboard, cleared his throat. William released me, straightening his lapels, the mask snapping back. Smile for the cameras, Addison. Or we'll both regret it. The Cathedral St. Patrick's. All Gothic spires and stained glass saints swarmed with the elite, senators nursing hangovers, tech bros in bespoke suits, socialites scrolling Insta-mid-pew. I walked the aisle alone. No father to give me away, the organ swelling like a dirge. Ethan waited at the altar, pale but resolute, his groomsmen shifting uncomfortably. Vows exchanged in monotone, rings sliding on like manacles. Then the reception, the Waldorf's grand ballroom, transformed into a glittering coliseum of excess, swags of orchids, ice sculptures of intertwined initials, a 9-course menu from Daniel Bullitt himself. William's toast was slotted for 9 p.m.
Post salads.
Pre-entrees. The room hushed as he ascended the stage, mic in hand, that avuncular grin plastered on. Ladies and gentlemen, family, friends, today we celebrate not just Addison and Ethan, but the unbreakable bonds that define us Harringtons. Laughter. Applause. He turned to me, eyes gleaming with malice. Addison's always been our firecracker, the one who keeps us honest. Remember that time she exposed the family secret at Thanksgiving? The turkey was dry. Chuckles built. Guests leaning in for the punchline. In my first life, I'd frozen. Cheeks burning. The room spinning as he piled on. She's got her mother's spirit. Wild. Unpredictable.
But hey.
That's why we love her.
Right?
To a beautiful disaster. Collapse. Lights out. This time, I was already on my feet. Microphone commandeered from the bandstand. The envelope thick vellum. Stuffed with printouts and a USB drive, clutched in my fist. Actually, Dad, I said, my voice amplified, slicing through the murmurs. Let's talk about real family secrets. Like how you murdered my mother to protect your fraud ring. Pandemonium. Gasps. Flashes from phone cameras. William's face drained of color. Mike trembling. Addison. Stop this.
No.
I held up the envelope, letting pages flutter to the stage like confetti from hell. Exhibit A, Mom's autopsy, altered by your payoffs. Exhibit B, the $2.3 million in bribes for the Bronx Project, Marcus's emails authorizing every cent.
And C?
The hit you put out on me last time, not physical, but reputational. You knew the stress would break me.
It did.
I died here, on this stage, because of you. The crowd fractured, some bolting for exits, others frozen in voyeuristic glee. Ethan gaped from our table. His mother shrieked. William lunged, but two burly ex-cops, hired by me that morning, blocked him. You're done, old man. FBI's en route. Enjoy Rikers. As sirens wailed in the distance, I felt the weight lift. A rebirth, not just of body,
But soul.
but revenge? It always claims a toll. The arrests came swift and surgical, like a raid on a cartel safehouse. By midnight, William and Marcus were in cuffs, zip-tied in the Waldorf's loading dock while paparazzi swarmed the barricades, drones buzzing overhead like vultures. I watched from the balcony, still in my gown, a glass of untouched Dom Perignon in hand, as the squad cars peeled out toward one police plaza. Ethan had vanished into the night with his family. A terse text, my only goodbye. Need space. This is too much. Fine by me, his space was just another word for self-preservation. The tabloids feasted for weeks. Heiress exposes tycoon dad's empire of lies, splashed across the Post's front page. My face pixelated but unmistakable beside mugshots of William in his rumpled Armani. CNN looped the toast footage, my voice steady. His collapse into a chair like a felled oak. Social media? A dumpster fire of hot takes. Addison Avenger trending with memes of me as a vengeful bridezilla, while incel forums branded me a crazy Asian gold digger out for blood. The racism stung. A throwback to playground taunts in Forest Hills. But I leaned into it, dropping an op-ed in the Times. My father's fraud. Why silence kills daughters. It went viral. Shares from Me Too warriors to Wall Street whistleblowers. But glory's a fickle mistress. Sleepless nights clawed at me. Ghosts of the first life whispering doubts. Had I gone too far? That bluff with Ethan's family, leaking the EPA docs anonymously the next day, torpedoed their stock 15%. Collateral damage? Sure. But those layoffs in Houston? Faces I didn't know. Families shattered on my altar of justice. And Marcus.
God.
The calls from his wife. Hysterical sobs, he's innocent. Addie, you framed him. Lies. All of it. I had the server logs. The wire transfers with his digital fingerprints. But hearing her break echoed my own buried grief for the brother I'd once babysat, teaching him curse words in Vietnamese over bootleg pho. William's trial prep dragged into fall. A circus in the federal courthouse on Pearl Street. I testified first, perched in the witness box like a specimen under glass, recounting the rebirth I couldn't explain, framing it as a breakdown that clarified everything, the judge's gavel a punctuation to my selective truths. The defense painted me as vindictive, Daddy's little extortionist, trotting out shrinks to diagnose delusional rage. Jurors shifted uncomfortably during the audio plays. William's voice a specter. Bury her. But the real gut punch? The buried secret I unearthed mid-trial. Subpoenaing Mom's old storage unit in Jersey. It arrived in a mildewed banker box, yellowed letters. A locket with a faded photo, not of William, but a younger man, dark-haired. Vietnamese features sharp as mine. My Deo, the inscription read. Deo Nguyen. My biological father. Mom's diary spilled it. She'd fled Saigon in '75, pregnant by her brother's best friend, a dissident poet who'd stayed behind. Deo survived the camps, emigrated years later, tracked her to New York. William? He'd known, courted her anyway. Then when Deo showed up broke and begging, poisoned the well. He threatened to deport him, Mom wrote, framed him for theft at the docks. Deo vanished after that. Jail. Maybe worse. William adopted me as leverage. A way to save her from her past, but really to control the narrative. The final entry, dated weeks before her death. William found out I'm telling Addie. He says it'll destroy her future. But truth is freedom. I clutched that diary in the courthouse bathroom, heaving sobs into monogrammed tissues. Freedom? It tasted like ash. William had stolen not just my mother, but my heritage, my identity. Deo alive? Dead? The immigration records were sealed. But a PI hired, controversial decision number 3, dipping into the frozen Harrington assets via a quickie injunction, traced a lead to a nursing home in Fall River, Massachusetts. An old man, dementia-riddled, photos matching the locket. My father. Alive.
But lost.
The trial climaxed in December, snow blanketing the streets like a shroud. William took the stand, a husk in his ill-fitting suit, spinning tales of tough love and business necessities. Addison was always troubled, he croaked, eyes locking on mine across the room. Her mother's instability. It's genetic. The gallery murmured. My lawyer objected. Sustained. But then the twist. Marcus flipped. Plea deal. Testifying against Dad for reduced time. He ordered the hits, the bribes, the cover-ups. Even Addie. He wanted her silenced permanently. Permanently. The word hung, implying more than smears. A hired fixer? Poison in my champagne? The prosecution pivoted, charging conspiracy to murder. Verdict: guilty on all counts. William,
68.
Sentenced to 35 years in Otisville, the Fed pen upstate where white-collar crooks rot with regrets. Marcus, 10 with parole. As the gavel fell, he turned to me one last time, mouthing monster through the marshals. I met his gaze, unflinching.
No.
Dad. Survivor. Post-trial. The empire crumbled, assets seized, properties auctioned. I kept the Queen's apartment, Grandma's old place, renovating it into a non-profit hub for evicted tenants, funded by the settlement.
Ethan?
Divorced papers served by courier. He married a Pilates instructor 6 months later. Their wedding a footnote in page 6. I didn't care. My controversial calls piled up, anonymously tipping off competitors to snatch Harrington deals. Even a late-night hack, don't ask, a Berkeley dropout buddy owed me, to leak Williams' prison commissary logs, showing payoffs to guards, just to keep him paranoid. But the real tension simmered inward. Visiting Deo in that sterile Fall River facility. Bingo cards and Jell-O molds, the height of excitement.
Gutted me.
He didn't know me. Eyes milky with fog. But when I played a recording of Mom singing DM Shua from her old cassette,
He wept. Lon.
my Lon. Lon, her real name. I stayed weekends, piecing together fragments. Deo's poetry smuggled in re-education camps. His American dreams dashed by William's sabotage. One night, lucid for a heartbeat, he gripped my hand. You look like her. Fight for the light.
Gone guy? Daughter.
It cracked me open. Spring bloomed, and with it, a new rhythm. Board meetings for the nonprofit, podcasts on corporate corruption, even a book deal, memoir. Half-truths wrapped in rebirth myth. But tension coiled. A live wire. Whispers from old associates. Williams appealing. Alleging coercion. And then, the letter, smuggled via a guard. Postmarked Otisville. You think you won? I made you. Without me, you're nothing but a boat person's bastard spawn. Attached, a photo. Grainy. Of Deo in 90s cuffs. Deportation stamp fresh. William stewing. Even then. Rage reignited. Controversial decision 4. I drove upstate. Visitor's pass in hand. Confronting him through plexiglass. End it.
Dad.
Confess everything, Mom. Deo, or I release the full files. The ones tying you to the dock's disappearance. His laugh rasped.
Defeated.
And if I don't, I leaned in. Voice a whisper. I'll make your hell biblical. He broke 2 days later. A jailhouse confession taped by feds I'd tipped. Full exoneration for Deo. Pardon posthumous. But closure for me. Summer heat baked the city. And I stood on my balcony. Skyline sprawling like a conquered map. Revenge tasted sweet, but hollow. I'd saved lives. Exposed rot. Reclaimed my blood. Yet the mirror showed scars. Trust eviscerated. Love a casualty. Was this happy? Tragic?
Both.
Tangled like city veins. Fallout's half-life is eternal. It seeps into dreams. Taints coffee. Lingers like cigarette smoke on an ex-smoker's coat. A year post-verdict. I was Addison Gwynn, Harrington scrubbed like a stain, 30 now. Running the nonprofit from a loft in Dumbo. Views of the Brooklyn Bridge mocking my fragile peace. The book. Buried empires. Hit shelves in July. Climbing bestsellers on waves of scandal-hungry readers. Talk shows beckoned. Oprah's couch for the healing journey. Joe Rogan's for the conspiracy deep dive. I played the part, poised, unflappable. The Phoenix Bride, but inside. The wires frayed. Deo's decline accelerated that autumn. The home called with updates. Each vaguer than the last. I drove up every other weekend. The Mass Pike a ribbon of regret. Reading his poems aloud in that antiseptic room. Odes to lost Saigons. To a love stolen by wars and worse. One crisp October day. He surfaced fully. Eyes clearing like fog off the harbor. Addison, he breathed. The name a talisman. We talked for hours. His escape on a fishing boat. The camp's brutality. The letter he'd mailed Mom that William intercepted. I came for you both. He said you were happy, his daughter now. Lies upon lies. As dusk fell, he slipped my hand the locket. Wear it. Remember, truth isn't revenge. It's roots. He passed 2 weeks later. Pneumonia claiming what time hadn't. The funeral was small, me. A handful of Vietnamese expats from Fall River's enclave. Incense curling in a community hall off South Main. No Harringtons, Marcus. Out on parole. Sent carnations with a note. Sorry for everything. I burned it in the parking lot. Ashes scattering like absolution. Back in Brooklyn, I dove into work. Lawsuits against holdover Harrington execs. Grants for affordable housing in the Bronx. But the tension? It morphed from explosive to insidious. Nightmares of the wedding stage. William's face morphing into mine, accusing, mocking. You became me. The twist hit like a sucker punch, courtesy of a late-night Google alert. Harrington appeal granted. New evidence emerges. My stomach dropped. The article, from a Murdoch rag, alleged planted files. My testimony coerced by anonymous hackers. Attached, a sworn affidavit from Ethan, claiming I'd fabricated the Caldwell leaks out of spite, that our marriage was abusive manipulation. Abusive? The word ignited fury. But digging deeper, hacking his emails via that same Berkeley pal, Decision 5, Ethics Be Damned, revealed the payoff. William's prison slush fund, funneled through a shell to Ethan's consulting firm. Betrayal squared. My ex, selling me out for a cut of the scraps. I confronted him at his Midtown office, unannounced, the locket heavy against my collarbone. He looked older, pauncher, the golden boy tarnished. Addison. Heard about Deo. Sorry. His office reeked of desperation. Half-empty Scotch bottle. Framed photo of his new wife and their infant. All performative bliss.
The affidavit?
It's nothing. Legal bullshit. Bullshit. I hurled the printout at his desk. You took his money. Lied under oath. For what, spite? Or just to erase me? He deflated, rubbing temples. He reached out through lawyers. Said if I recanted, the family would fund my startup. Clean slate. I needed it. After you, everything tanked. After me. As if I were the villain. The controversial urge surged. Expose him. Drag his wife through the mud. Bankrupt the nursery fund. But Deo's words echoed roots. Not revenge. I leaned in. Voice steel. Withdraw it.
Publicly.
Or I drop the transfers. Every cent traced to your kid's 529. His eyes widened. He nodded. Frantic.
Deal. Just.
Why not finish it? Ruin me like you did him. Because I'm not him, I said, turning for the door. That's the win. The appeal crumbled days later. Ethan's recantation. Plus feds uncovering the bribes. William stayed caged. Appeals exhausted. His empire a ghost.
Me?
I dated tentatively, a barista with tattoos and a sociology degree. No pedigrees. Just easy laughs over ramen in the East Village. It fizzled. But the trying? That was rebirth's gift. 2 years blurred into normalcy's facade. The nonprofit thrived, breaking ground on a co-op in Bed-Stuy, families who'd lost homes to Harrington evictions now owning units. I keynote at TEDx. Voice steady. Betrayal isn't the end, it's the forge. Applause thundered. But backstage, the mirror showed laugh lines, not scars. Therapy helped, weekly sessions and a walk-up on the Upper West Side, unpacking the rebirth myth. It was a fugue state, the shrink said gently. Trauma's way of rewriting pain. Maybe. Or maybe the universe owed me one. The final twist slithered in on a winter eve, snow dusting the bridge like powdered sugar. A package arrived, no sender. Just my name in block letters. Inside, a cassette tape, labeled Lan's last words. Mom's voice. Tinny but unbroken. Addie, if you hear this. William's dangerous. I hid copies of everything in the unit. Protect yourself. And no, you're enough. My light. Tears blurred. She'd recorded it days before. Prescient. Slipping it to a neighbor for safekeeping. I played it on loop that night. Faux steaming on the stove, Grandma's recipe. Reclaimed. No more ghosts. William died in Otisville 3 springs later. Pancreatic cancer. Unvisited. His obit? A footnote. Mine? An open book. Revenge ended in silence. Not shock. But the bride who froze him? She walked free. Roots deep. Light unbroken. In America's grind, that's the real controversy. Surviving not just the fall, but the flight.